Our second speaker today is an educator, a writer, researcher, CEO, dental hygienist, wife, mother. She is the whole vibe. She truly believes in the power of confidence and courage, breaking it down, strength style. Thank you very much. She is an achiever. She takes command. She is strategic. She is an arranger. She is undoubtedly self-assured, and she is undoubtedly courageous. Please help me welcome the amazing Dr. Joy Void-Holmes. Dr. Joy, like only a true do can, as she helps us discover how we build our courage, muscles, and turn them into our personal superpowers. Please help me welcome Dr. Joy.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see some of your faces. I can't wait to be able to see you again. So I have about 20 minutes to pack a punch. So I hope that you get ready. Just want to let you know that I love quotes. Quotes are what help to inspire me, and they also help me to continuously develop my courage muscles. And that's something that you are going to learn about today. So I am going to be sharing a few of those quotes with you as we go along this journey together. So the first quote, and my computer is acting just as crazy, so my apologies. Let's see here. The first quote that I would like to share with you: we need courage to be more of ourselves in life. It can be scary being yourself sometime, and I want you to really let that sit with you. If you really could be who you wanted to be, if you could really be who you wanted to be without any strings attached, would you do it? What's preventing you from being who it is that you really want to be? So I found this to be a very, very powerful quote, and I wanted to actually get started with this. So what is the actual meaning of courage? I can certainly give you the book definition, but this is what courage means to me. Number one, courage means action. And you're going to hear me talk about action throughout this presentation. It's not enough to say, yeah, I feel like I can do it. If you're not doing it, then you're not being courageous. It also means mental strength for me. I think sometimes people associate courage with just the act of doing things. But if your mind isn't right, if your mental isn't together, then you're going to have a problem with performing those courageous acts or even developing those courage muscles. Courage also means being vulnerable, admitting that someone has hurt my feelings. I don't like something. Being willing to say that I'm not perfect, being willing to say I need help, being willing to say that, you know, I have a lot to learn. And it also means being okay with failure and rejection. Through failure and rejection comes growth. So that is just a part of life. I always say you have to go with the ebbs and flows of life. And so you have to be okay with that. But lastly, for me, courage means having faith. I often get asked, how is it that you do what you do? How do you find the strength and the courage to do what you do? And a lot of it rests with my faith. Sometimes, you know, I don't know if I'm coming or going. I have so much going on, but I really, really rely on my faith. My faith is what gets me through a lot of this. All righty, so quick question, and I want you to use the chat. My question for you: does being courageous mean never being afraid? Is that true or is it false? True or false? And I can't see my chat. I'm going to guess that some people say true, and I'm going to guess that some people will actually say false. But here's what I want to tell you. Another quote, you know, we have to know what scares us. You need to be honest with yourself and say, you know, what actually scares you. And when you're able to identify those things that scare you, then, you know, I'm going to tell you today, you actually have to do those things. right? I say as women in dentistry and as leaders, sometimes it's those things that scare you. And we talked about this in my breakout session. Sometimes those are good things because they're actually protecting us, but sometimes they're just making us comfortable and preventing us from doing what it is that we actually need to do. So the fact of the matter is, courage is not the absence of fear. Courageous people do feel fear, but they are able to manage and overcome the fears so that it does not stop them from action. I am here to tell you, yes, I am confident and I am courageous, but I am scared crapless sometimes, and I watch my mouth, right? I am. I get scared quite often. Professionally, I get very nervous and scared when I have to speak. I remember my very first, what I consider major speaking engagement. It was at RDH Under One Roof. And I do remember seeing Sonia Dunbar on here, and I believe I told her this. And this is a story that I like to share with people who are just breaking into the industry. I was just nervous. I was very nervous, number one, because, I began my speaking career on talking about instrumentation. And here it is, they want me to talk about nutrition, right? I'm like, okay, got to talk about nutrition. I have to speak in front of my peers. And then to find out it was a sold out session. So I remember being with Sonia the evening before my presentation, and I was also with Davita Johnson, who's with VOCO. And they both came up to me and they're like, you know what you got to do tomorrow, right? You know what you got to do. And I'm thinking it wasn't, oh baby, it's going to be okay. They had me, but they also said, look, you have to put your big girl panties on. You don't have time to be nervous. You asked for this. It's here. Now you have to do what you have to do. Right. Terrified, but I did what I had to do. Stepping into my role as a director, having to now be in charge of people who used to be in charge of me, people being older than me, understanding that I was going to change the way things were going to be, and that wasn't going to be looked upon okay, but I had to do what I had to do. Also, just the transitions that I've had to make in my business. Like I said, I was very comfortable talking about instrumentation. And then some of the companies that I'm working for are saying, yes, I think that's great and all. Instrumentation is great, but it's time for you to expand. So now I want you to talk about glass ionomers. And now I want you to talk about dental hypersensitivity. And not only that, I want you to speak alongside some of these dentists. Was I absolutely scared? Was I fearful? Absolutely. But how was I going to grow if I didn't move past that fear? Personally, I have fears. I've been married 25 years, and sometimes you have to say, after 25 years, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Yeah, that 2 minutes 11 tonight is not going to cut it, buddy. You need to, conjure up your 21-year-old self, right? You have to feel comfortable saying that and knowing that it might not go over well, but that's being true to who I am, right? Having the courage, most of us are mothers on here, having the courage to allow our children to live the lives that we may not have envisioned for them, but to actually live the life that they've envisioned for themselves. That takes a lot of courage, and still love them and encourage them. And when they may be doing things that we don't necessarily want them to do. Now, I'm not talking about being strung out on drugs, but it might be that they're, going in a career direction that you didn't necessarily want for them. But then I say it, and I talked about this earlier, is spiritually, right? Having the courage to accept God's will and never question. And that can be so very, very hard to do. The thing is, guys, is that you have that courage within you. The thing with courage is that it's just not something that can be given to you. And it's not something that you have one day and you just push it to the back because you have it. It's something that you have to continuously work on. So please remember that. So working on it. Courage is a muscle. It is a muscle. In order to get muscles, first you have to develop them, right? You have to get them, you have to develop them, and then you have to strengthen them. And how do you do that? You do that with practice. So how is it that we are going to develop our muscles? Okay. So for me, this is what I say. I think it takes a lot of personal reflection when you start to develop your courage muscles. You have to be honest with yourself, a lot of introspection. And sometimes you have to be honest with yourself in a manner which is not comfortable. So truly admitting when you're wrong. I've been married, once again, 25 years, and no, I don't like to admit when I'm wrong. Even when I know I'm wrong, I don't like to admit when I'm wrong. But when I'm doing my personal work, when I'm doing my own personal self-assessments, I really have to be honest with myself. Taking action, here's that action word again. You have to act. It's not enough to say that you want to do something. It's not even enough to say you're going to do something. You actually have to do it. And then let's just say you're scared of something, right? You're scared to step out of your comfort zone and you decide to do it one day, right? But then for every time you feel fearful, every time that little voice who's holding you back says no, you then have to look at that voice. I call it split personalities. You have to look at that personality that's pushing you to do something. And you want to keep doing it, because if you keep doing it, you are now creating a habit. So developing courage muscles is like developing a habit. You have to do those small things over and over again, and knowing that the process is continuous. Again, you're not gonna, let's just say for those of you who may not feel as courageous, you're probably not going to go out and say, I'm going to conquer the world. And if you do, I think that's great. I've done my job. But just know that these are things that you're going to have to work on continuously to feel courageous in all aspects of your life moving forward. So building courage muscles to me is a little like a fight or an exercise, okay? And sometimes in fights, right, you have easy rounds, you have rounds that are kind of mediocre, and then you have those hard rounds. So we're gonna talk about the easy stuff. We're gonna call this round one. So round one, okay, this is what the book tells us. This is what the experts tell us. So these are the top 10 shared characteristics of shared individuals. And I call this easy because I can tell you all of the characteristics that you need to possess to be courageous. So that's easy. So let's talk about them. Self-confidence is one, okay? You have to believe in yourself. I can't believe in you for you. I can encourage you and uplift you and tell you everything that's great about you. But if you don't believe it, then it won't matter. So you have to know who you are, truly know who you are, know what you stand for. You have to walk with a sense of purpose, and you have to be comfortable in your own skin. So that's self-confidence. Number two, conviction, okay? You have to know, once again, what it is you stand for. You stand in your convictions, and you do not waver, meaning, I'm going to make this person uncomfortable, or they're not going to like what I say, so I'm going to change my mind. No, even when it gets heated and hot, you stand in your convictions. Excuse me. Number three, you have to have some integrity about you, okay? It's not enough to say it. You have to talk about it, and you also have to be about it. Number four, leadership. We've heard this leadership thing come up quite a bit today, especially during Anita's talk. As a good leader, you're not going to be deterred by any type of adversity. A good leader is going to stand strong when things are good, but they're also going to stand strong when things get heated, okay? As a leader, you have to be willing to do the things maybe that others aren't willing to do, or also do the things that make you uncomfortable. You also have to be compassionate. And I always like to say, it is not always about you, okay? You have got to learn to put the needs of others before your own sometimes. You also have to be objective, okay? So Frank Sonnenberg is who developed these 10 characteristics of courageous individuals. And he says, verbatim, courageous people understand the importance of trust, honesty, and full disclosure while confronting people who hide behind untruths. So sometimes you have to be able to call it like you see it. Understanding, another characteristic is understanding that there is strength in adversity, okay? These tough times, these difficult times, and I'm going to be honest, guys, these past 2 months, I have been going through it. And there have been times when I've wanted to throw in the towel. There are times where I've said to myself, I don't need this. I have so many other things going on. Why am I putting myself through this? But what I've learned to say to myself is that they're building me and preparing me for something greater. And so that is where my courage comes in. I'm going to stand in it. And I always like to say, I'm not a punk. So you can throw whatever you want to throw at me. I may have some bad days and days where I'm in the bathroom crying, but I'm going to wipe my tears. I'm going to take my moment and I'm going to come back stronger. Embrace the unknown. Courageous people will follow their gut. They will follow their intuition. They get very comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? And then action. There's that action word again. You have got to put your money where your mouth is, okay? You have to talk the talk, but you also have to walk the walk. You have to act. Round 2, okay? So this is the average round. So I want to share something with you, and I want you to take just a moment to read this. And I wonder if some of you know where this language came from. So I'll give you a few seconds to read it. I know Anna's probably smiling. If you go to the do page, this is where you find this information. Dental entrepreneurial women. We are female leaders, and there's a reason why I put this here, okay? Because as leaders, we often have to be courageous as well. Here's another quote. We need courage before we can be passionate, truthful, and confident. It's the enabler of virtues. And so for round 2, what I want to share with you are the top 10 traits of courageous leaders. Every single one of you on this call, you're a leader, okay? And so what are some of the traits that you need to be able to possess to be that courageous leader? So number 1, these are traits that I adapted from Susan Tarandicio. I think that's the correct pronunciation of her name. She is the CEO of Authentic Leadership Alliance, and she is the executive in residence at the Center for Creative Leadership. And so these are some of the top 10 traits that she offers. Number 1, you have to confront reality head on, okay? Life is just not always peaches, creams, and roses, right? Okay, so you have to be able to see things for what it is. And sometimes it's not always pretty. Number 2, and this is going to be hard for some of you, is that you have to seek feedback and listen. Do not surround yourself with people who are always going to tell you you're doing wonderful. You are doing great. You need to surround yourself with people who are going to identify your blind spots. Because when you're able to identify those blind spots, if you are able to listen to the feedback for things that you need to improve upon, that's the only way that you're going to be able to get better. Again, I surround myself with people, I like to say, who keep it real with me all the time. And I'm going to call on Sonia Dunbar again. This was very early in our relationship when we met. And I remember I was kind of going through a phase where I didn't know who I wanted my social media person to get, and my messages were being mixed. And she was like, "No, tell me, what is this you or is this you? Your message is unclear." And I'm like, "Oh, I thought I was doing a good job. Maybe, okay, let me clean this this up a bit." And the one thing that always stuck out to me is like, she was like, "Baby girl, you need to come up out of that bun. You look like a little girl. We need you to go ahead and pull your hair out, and we need you to grow up a little bit." And I was like, you know what? She is absolutely correct, because my husband had been saying that to me for years. You see, I'm still in my bun, but I'm listening, Sonia. One day I'm gonna make you proud and pull my hair out. Courageous leaders are not afraid to say what needs to be said, and that takes courage. We all know that real conversations can be uncomfortable and awkward, but if you're going to grow as an individual, if you're going to grow as a leader, if you're going to have any type of inner peace, you have got to be able to say those things that may make other people uncomfortable. And far too often, you are more concerned about how other people feel that you hold in what needs to be said and you make yourself uncomfortable. So having crucial conversations will be key. Encourage pushback. Another trait of a courageous leader, you don't want to sit in a room full of people that are always going to agree. You want to encourage that lively debate. You want to encourage people to have a different perspective from you. Again, that's the only way that you're going to grow, in order for you to see things from a different perspective. You have got to learn how to communicate openly and frequently. One thing that I've always learned is closed mouths don't get fed. You can't be afraid to ask for what it is that you want. You can't be afraid to tell people how you choose to be treated, okay? And you need to be able to say that often. We are not mind readers, okay? So open communication, always keeping the lines of communication open. You also have to be a leader of change. It is not okay always to go with the status quo. You have to be comfortable with pushing the envelope. I will say that I'm someone who has always pushed the envelope all my life. I don't know why. So as a child, people are going to call you rebellious. People are going to call you defiant. They're going to call you insubordinate. Well, you can call me all those things, but status quo just doesn't work for me. I wouldn't be who I am and where I am if I always toed the line. So don't be afraid to push the envelope. Don't be afraid to make a decision and move forward. I said what I said, and what I said is what I said. Next. You know, those of you who are in leadership positions, you don't have time. Let's talk about that value. You don't have time to negotiate with someone back and forth about how much you should be charging for your product or your service. You don't have time for that. Okay. My price is my price. It's either for you or it's not. And it's time to move on. Don't be afraid to give credit to others. You have to give credit where credit is due. I find so much joy in uplifting others. I am only as good a leader as the other people around me. I am only as strong as my weakest person. And so I feel I'm just really, really passionate about making others around me better and just celebrating other people when they win. And most importantly, you have to hold your own self accountable. You know, if you do wrong, acknowledge that you've done wrong and own up to it. And if you've done great, don't be afraid to celebrate yourself. Accountability doesn't begin with someone telling you what you've done wrong. It actually begins with you. So hold yourself responsible for the behaviors that you're holding other people accountable for. We're almost at the end. We're at round 3, and this is where it gets difficult for some people. This is where it gets really difficult for me. Again, I'm going to share. I'm scared all the time. The difference is that I have that little person on my head, that split personality, the fighter that's always telling this little person holding me back to shut up, to go home, right? And so this is where I'm able to push past where some others may not be able to. Another quote, and this said a lot to me. So I'm going to read it out loud. I already know what it feels like to let my doubts keep me small. I'd like to see what happens when I lead with my heart anyway, doubts and all. That's what these courage quotes are for, to carry you forward into something new and maybe something better. Some of you have already been playing small for so long. That's why you're here, because you're looking for a way out, right? You know what it feels like to play small and to have that little person keep you back and to have all of that doubt. So what if you started listening to this person here? Imagine what that life would be like, okay? So the last thing is that 7 steps to building your courage muscles. So we talked about developing the muscles, the baby muscles. Now, how do you get them to be those big, hefty muscles. Once you start to build them through continuous practice and habits, you're going to be winning, guys. So 7 steps to building your courage muscles. This is by Dr. Margie Worrell. She is a global authority on living and leading with courage. Number 1, you have got to get clear on what it is you want in life. And for so long, I really didn't know what I wanted. And so that's why I was stuck. You have to get clear on what you want. If you don't know what you want, how do you expect for someone else to know what you want? And that applies professionally and personally. You can't just say, well, you should already know what I want for dinner. We've been married 25 years. No, you need to open your mouth and say what it is that you want. And so the same thing applies in your business. Be clear about what you want. And an action step that you can take here is write down something, think of that big, audacious goal, this dream that you've had. Write down something that you've wanted to do. Just write it down, okay? But I need you to be really, really clear about what it is that you want to do and what it is that you want. And this is where number 2 comes in. You want to identify your deepest fear associated with that dream, okay? What is holding you back? And again, fear is a part of being courageous, and fear can also be a good thing. Our bodies have an innate way of protecting us, right? So sometimes that fear is real, and it is really protecting us from something that we don't need to go to. But you need to be very clear. Is that fear protecting you, or is that fear paralyzing you? 2 very different things. Number 3, you have to be honest with yourself about the cost of inaction. For those of you who are stuck in your head, who are too afraid to take that next step, it is costing you. And you have to acknowledge just how much it has cost you. Me being stuck in my head and me waiting for something to be perfect has cost me in life. So be really clear. Okay, say what it is you want, what's holding you back, and what has it cost you along the lines, okay? You have that big dream, right, for step number 1. Now you have to take that big dream and you have to break it down into smaller steps. So let's just say your big dream, maybe 12 months to achieve that big dream, right? You then want to take that big dream and maybe you want to break it down into what are some of the things that you can do quarterly. Then you want to break it down into what are some of the things I can do monthly? What are some of the things I can do weekly? And then what are some of the things I can do daily? And if you start that way, that big dream doesn't seem so big anymore because you're taking those small steps to achieve it. Next, you want to be able to create accountability. We've talked about that already, okay? You want to hold yourself accountable, but you also want to surround yourself with other people who are going to hold you accountable. So, hey, Dr. Joy, remember you said you want to do this? Where is it? Remember you said you had this dream of losing 50 pounds? I still see those roles. What's going on there, right? Surround yourself with people who are going to hold you accountable. Number 6, and this is my favorite, you have to walk with giants, okay? You cannot be afraid or intimidated to surround yourself with other people who are as big or bigger than you. Today on this call with all of you and speaking alongside of Anita, I am walking with giants. And I told Anita I was going to tell this story. So of course, we always have to provide a bio or introduction. And I had done one for Anne a long time ago, included my strengths. So I was really, really proud of my introduction. And Anita sends this 3-page document on how you're supposed to, have someone introduce you. And I'm like, but yeah, I already, I had my bio already. And so what I got from Anita without Anita saying was like, yeah, that's cute and all, but you want to play big, then you need to act big. And this is how you're going to create your introduction. So thank you, Anita, because Anita doesn't allow me to play small. Very early in my speaking career, I remember I decided to do an educator's forum. And so this was, I think, after Under One Roof. So this is the second time that I'm speaking in front of a group of people. And I'm speaking with Jasmine Haley, I'm speaking with Emily Bogie, and I'm speaking with Claire Zhang, who have all had long speaking careers long before me, and they make me go first. Okay, I had to walk with giants, but I had to get very comfortable with being uncomfortable and stepping outside. And so now I want you to bring all the giants my way because they're just going to make me stronger. The last thing that you want to be able to do is, she calls it, train the brave. This is step number 7, train the brave. That's where you are developing your networks, your associations, your communities of like-minded people. Right? This is what we're doing now. I just want to end with another quote. Just know that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. Don't be afraid to give yourself some grace. It's okay if you didn't get it right today. You will have an opportunity to get it right again tomorrow. I want you to flex your courage muscles daily. Watch them transform into your personal superpowers, and you will be able to create the life that you want. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you so much for spending this afternoon with me, everyone.